Hello everybody from Namibia, sunny and hot here. We I don't know enjoying, but it's definitely summer here, easily close to 40 degrees Celsius daily. Mornings we go to work and it's 30 degrees Celsius. This is actually a recording of a live webinar I did a few weeks ago. Unfortunately, internet connectivity was not playing along and the sound was terrible. So thank you to everybody who listened in last time. And I hope you enjoy this recording of part 2 of our destination webinar. Many more are coming up. It's a big country, and sometimes I forget that I can't tell you everything about the country in 40 minutes. And just a reminder, yes, big country, 51 times bigger than the Okavango Delta, twice the size of California, 4 times the size of the UK, little bit smaller than British Columbia, and larger than New South Wales. So you really get an idea that trying to do a destination training in 45 minutes is near impossible. So we hope to this segmented training webinar will give you guys a lot of helpful tools of how to effectively sell Namibia. Next one. Sorry, and just like that, a little technical glitch again. So anyway, I also want to explain the flow of the destination training. And we are starting actually with the north of Namibia. So when you arrive in Namibia, we go up to the country rather than start with Sossusvlei. And for a lot of people, it's counterintuitive because 70% of all people traveling to Namibia are doing the loop to start in the dunes and end in Etosha. Most people's reasoning is leave the best for last, which yes, if game viewing is a focus, certainly. But Namibia has never been about game viewing, and compared to Botswana and East Africa, we have some exceptional experiences here, but you'll never get the masses, the experiences quite here. We want people to come and focus on the landscapes in Namibia, and if they see wildlife, great bonus. So what we generally recommend is start with Etosha. It's a busy public park. There are lots of self-drivers and families and bus groups. And you get that game viewing fix out of your system. Otherwise, you find that guests are stopping for every springbok and Sossusvlei and not appreciating the dunes. So let them see this in the rainy and the dry season. Etosha is amazing with the diversity of wildlife. And we'll dig deeper into Etosha as a destination with our next webinar. But first, I want to explain, start with the wildlife first, and then we end with the scenery. Nothing compares like the best sundowner spot in Namibia, the dunes. Nothing like reminiscing about your trip gone past. I think a lot of people also underestimate that the pace of Namibia is quite hectic, but also the pace for planning a trip the 2 weeks before. Did you pack the passport? Did you remember to do this? Then get your work up to date, hop onto that long haul flight, 20 hours later, you arrive in Namibia, we get you straight to Sossusvlei, 6 hours later, you arrive at the dunes. Next morning, get up before sunrise, get going to see the dunes. It's an insane pace. So when you start in Etosha, it is much more relaxed. You idle away on your game drive, look at the wildlife, and then you can really feel like, oh, I'm on holiday. So that's why also the destination training is based on the flow of how we think a journey in Namibia safari goes well. Please, this is not be all and all. Guests have a great time starting in Sossusvlei and ending in Etosha, but generally the experience is enhanced starting with the north. I'm focusing today on what we call the Central Farmlands, the Central Highlands. That's basically cattle country. Namibia is renowned for their beef. Did you know we're the only African nation that is allowed to export their beef to the USA? We're very proud of it. So a lot of the areas we're discussing today were previously farmlands. They were either converted into private nature reserve. There was a lot of conflict, human-wildlife conflict, which makes this part of Namibia very interesting to see how farming and wildlife tries to live together. If you think about it, Namibia has the largest free-roaming population of cheetah. They get everywhere. It can get very, very dicey between the farmers and the communities here. The first area we mentioned is Omaruru. We call it Omaruru region, but it's actually better known as the Erongo region, which is the mountain in the area there. We do book it occasionally. What is convenient is like 2-3 hours out of Windhoek. So it's very easy, accessible. You can avoid the night in Windhoek if you want so. And you enjoy quite pristine luxury here. There are 2 lodges we like to use, so you'll often occasionally find us recommending them. One is a park called Game Lodge. When we first visited them, we thought it was a bit weird. It used to be a German game hunting farm, very artificial. We didn't really go into this whole guest farm thing. They have a tame giraffe. We kind of always a bit sensitive about habituated wildlife. But the owners that have taken over Epako completely rebuilt the lodge, created probably what is the best chef cuisine hospitality you get in country. Konstantin and his team put a lot of effort with personal hosting. This is like a honeymoon destination you'd want to have. Beautiful bush landscape. Yes, there is this giraffe, tame giraffe, but they also have lots of wild giraffe. They're also custodians for white rhinos on the property. They do scenic drives. This is a really nice, chilled experience into Namibia, or even out of Namibia. We found that even though most of our guests want to be out in nature, wild, get going, find the desert, they actually enjoy 2-3 nights of supreme luxury, great food, just being spoiled a bit, especially towards the end of the Namibian safari, can be quite intense and exhausting. Then another favorite of ours is the Erongo Wilderness Camp. It's one of the older tented camps. It's been rebuilt a few times, so it looks glorious. What I really like about this camp is the interpretive walks. So few places still offer proper walking in Namibia. Like walking is always an afterthought for sundowners. Oh, let's just stroll after dinner or before dinner up this near hill. But Erongo Wilderness invests a lot in their guides to offer these interpretive walks in the mornings and late afternoons to really embrace this rocky granite, bold environment and learn about how the Damara people and a lot of the communities live off the flora a lot. There's a lot of herbal plants in here, medicinal plants, and it's also great for birding, exceptional for birding. So in that destination, it's just such a good experience to start with. Now we're coming to probably what we book in the majority of our safaris, which is the Central Highlands. I've been going to Okonjima, and the history is quite fascinating. And the father had the same conflict with leopard, tearing down his sheep and goats and cattle. And the children, Donna and Lisa and Tammy, and they all kind of were saying, well, this can't be long-term sustainable, Dad. You can't keep shooting all these leopards. So he said, well, come up with initiatives to protect me as a farmer and still protect your leopards. Decades later, from how they used to be, it used to be that Okonjima, all they did was just rescue cheetahs and cheetah cubs. Farmers would shoot a leopard mother or cheetah mother, see they have cubs, can't kill the cubs, brings them to Okonjima, they hand raise them, bottle feed them. These animals become like dogs, impossible to be rehabilitated into nature. Everybody's just trying to figure out how we're going to protect this wildlife. Over time, Okonjima discovered ways of like a really hands-off approach so that the cheetah cubs and leopard cubs are raised as wild as possible. Many were able to be released back into the wild, completely self-sustainable. There's a lot of farmlands and areas in Namibia where predators are welcomed. It's important to note that in Namibia, especially now, it's completely illegal. Government, Ministry of Tourism forbids all hand touch contact with predators. You cannot walk with lions, you cannot touch the cheetahs, you cannot cuddle a leopard baby. The other thing they're very strict about is that you're not allowed to breed with these animals. So if they are in captivity and can never be released, they have to be sterilized. It's non-negotiable by the Namibian government. Okonjima does offer this cheetah tracking by foot. The vantage point is very deceptive. It looks like they're very close to the cheetah. They're actually not. It's radio telemetry tracking by foot. They also do leopard tracking by vehicle, so you can get close encounters there. But never ever do guests actually get close up to the cheetah's leopard. The majority of all the animals that Okonjima was involved in rescuing, they were able to release. They have unfortunate situation with a wild dog population, so they're not cats anymore, only exclusively. And those animals that are in captivity are being used for research. Namibian's cheetahs have one of the purest genomes in Africa. It doesn't have a lot of inbreeding problems. So that's one of the research that came out of it. But it's important that people understand that Okonjima doesn't do cuddling and cheetah walks and stuff like that, which is very controversial in South Africa. What's also great with Okonjima is that it's very children friendly. To a point, kids under 12 cannot go cheetah trekking, but they offer like a bushman guided walk, interpretive walk, and these kind of experiences really enhance the experience to kids getting up close to nature. But it's important that they know that they don't actually allow to go on cheetah trekking excursions. No matter how the parents say, oh, my kids are well behaved, it's mostly about the cats actually get very nervous about small children in the environment. I see it with my own domesticated house cat. He's not happy when he sees kids around. And what's so great about Okonjima and the majority of lodges in Namibia is actually that they offer a range of choice of lodges for you. So you'll get the bush camp, which is our preferred property, is a luxury lodge, small and personal. All the activities are all inclusive. And just remember for Okonjima, the activities start in early morning, return for brunch to the lodge, and then you have chill time till afternoon for an afternoon activity, and then you come back for dinner. So unlike a lot of the other activities in Namibia that are on offer because you cover a lot of distance, which are then full day, leave before sunrise, come back for lunch, can be really exhausting. Okonjima really works well in a little bit more chilled atmosphere. You are going to find the cheetahs and the leopards on a short drive. You don't have to endure 6 hours in the bush. Another favorite, especially for our more budget-conscious guests, as well as families, is the Plains Camp. It's basically a homage to the cattle farming legacy of this Okonjima farm, which, by the way, has increased magnifold with all the farms they bought surrounding them, taking down fences. So a lot of the wildlife, wildlife that cannot be rehabilitated into nature, can actually roam as free, as close to nature as possible. But back to Okonjima Plains Camp, they offer both luxury standard rooms and view rooms. I've actually seen both rooms. The standard rooms also have views. It was very confusing. In the end, the standard rooms were the first rooms they built, and they're a little bit smaller than the view rooms, which have a little bit more space for like a couch and an outside veranda. But luxury style and comfort-wise, they are exactly the same. So when your guests get only a standard room, don't worry, they're not getting an inferior room that overlooks, the back of another house. It's still very, very, very scenic in view. And they've got things like pizza oven, a realized plus, saying it really works well on that informal level without losing that family atmosphere that Okonjima is known for. And there's something I probably have to remind everybody as well. It started as a family farm, of course, but we're talking 2 decades later. 2 decades later, the Hansen family is not involved in the day-to-day running of the lodges anymore. But they have an amazing team that's part of the family, generational, as well as generational staff, that you might as well have been hosted by them, that run the team. So you are still assured the personal attention that many people have hoped for through a family atmosphere. Okonjima also has a bush suite, which takes up to 4 people in it. It's separate from the bush camp, although you can probably walk to bush camp if you want. By the way, the Okonjima lodges are all fenced in, so guests can walk at night. We don't recommend it generally, but there are no predators actually where there's a risk of a cheetah arriving in your bedroom at Okonjima specifically. And the bush suite works really well, all inclusive spaces. We book it a lot for small family groups and groups of that nature. The villa is something that started as a concept of an exclusive use villa only. For those that are curious, yes, this is where Brangelina once stayed many years ago. Ironically enough, they don't take kids under 12 because this place is actually not fenced in. And it's very important that guests are aware of it. It might be exclusive, but it's not fenced in. Recently, Okonjima decided to open up the villa as a sharing basis. So if you have 2 guests and the bush camp is fully booked and Plains camp is fully booked, they can actually get their own room, ensuite, everything like that, with a shared lounge areas if it's a lodge with other guests. So essentially, it's an intimate lodge experience, but they found that the sharing option instead of exclusive use made the most of using the Okonjima as well. And by the way, we can send you fact sheets of the Okonjima information that's sent you. There are pages and pages and pages and pages of them. So I was not going to go through each fact sheet and conditions and do's and don'ts. I mean, they're very flexible, but of course, there's always a concern of managing expectation of guests and also ensuring they have the maximum understanding of what AfriCat is all about. Then a lot of people ask us, so what's the difference between the Cheetah Conservation Fund, CCF, or basically something like CCF and Okonjima. Now, it's important to note that Okonjima started as a welfare conservation research project for predators, lions, leopards, and cheetah. But they got into tourism early on because they realized the way you can get donations is through tourism. It also opens up the environment and experience for people, and then people will understand the bigger concept of wildlife farming, etc. So they've been always very good at hosting and hospitality. CCF has always been about the cheetah, the research and the conservation. Tourism wasn't really something they focused on, although they did offer the day visitor center visit. And it's a broad overview experience of what they do. Then they got donated a house, which they call the Bobson House, which is an exclusive use villa. And part of the deal was then when guests stayed there, they also get to meet Laurie Marker, who's in the bottom left slide, and also get a really immersive, in-depth Cheetah Conservation Fund experience they can hope for. But it was quite expensive, and it can be a little bit just how the eye technical. And you know, most of your average travelers, tourists come, and this would like an overview for which AfriCat is exceptionally good at. Last year, they opened the Cheetah View Eco Lodge, much more your entry level lodge. I stayed there. And then you can have the Cheetah Conservation Fund experience, which works really well. There's some tours I enjoyed, some tours I didn't enjoy at all. They have something called the Cheetah Run, where every morning at a specific time, they have drag this piece of leather around this enclosure, and the cheetahs get the exercise. So for photographers, it's amazing. You see these uncollared cheetah in action. And what we also thought was interesting is the actual visitor center, just a little background. I personally found it very interesting when they talked about the dogs that they breed as shepherd sheepdogs, protect the goats, the farmers. I won't go into the detail there. The Andalusian sheepdogs, and I might be mispronouncing it. That was fascinating. I did not like the cheetah drive because it's quite a close encounter. It's like this enclosure, and this poor cheetah, he can never be released. He's in very good condition. But Okonjima's enclosures are so big, you actually think you're out in the wilderness. Whereas CCF, you know, this is actually a small enclosure. I also did not enjoy the cheetah feed that they do daily. They have to feed the cheetah, so they do it at a certain time. Having said that, the CCF team there is very good, again, informing guests. This is why they are in captivity. This is what we're feeding them. This is why we're feeding them. I found especially the lab visit interesting, explaining the research they do. And we do a lot of research, which has been extremely helpful in genome identification, disease control, things like that. Again, there's no touching of cheetahs. There is no, you know, Laurie Marker, of course, but no other guest is allowed to touch or stroke a cheetah. No feeding of baby cheetahs. It's very strict, no breeding with it. We also got to see the veterinary in action, just doing a tooth extraction from a cheetah. It didn't look very, very enjoyable. So it's a very specific tour. Make sure your guests are prepared for it. What may be good for photographers is the cheetah run here because the cheetahs are uncollared. Okonjima, the majority of their cheetah and leopard are collared, again, for research basis. But I know that photographers get sensitive about it. You know, they want as wild looking an experience as possible. We are very selective with the kind of conservation lodges we visit, because a lot of them say, yeah, I'm all about conservation, but they've got some tame cheetah there that they shot the mother off and they use it as a tourist attraction. We are very confident using AfriCat and CCF, and it is because of the integrity behind the conservation. People ask us about volunteering. Okonjima does not do that. Unfortunately, it became more of a full-time job hosting volunteers who added very little value. Must not forget that Namibia is all about Africa, free labor, cheap labor. So unless you have a doctor's degree in veterinary science, you can add some true value as a volunteer. you know, the young one that comes 18 years old on a gap year and wants to cuddle some leopard in Okonjima. It's not happening. Okonjima CCF does have a volunteer program. We're not involved in volunteerism of that nature, but you can reach out to them. And they have a 3-month, I think, projects going on. Very important in Namibia. No kid can do volunteering. We get that a lot as well. I understand. People want their children to be connected to African wildlife. Kids like to touch and feel things. That's how they feel a connection to something. But in Namibia, no volunteering for children is permitted. So unfortunately, just tell you guys that they want their kids to have a hands-on experience with predators, cheetah, leopards. That's unfortunately not possible in Namibia. Nankusa outside Windhoek offers some more close encounters. You can have like petting zoos for baboons and things like that. But even then, predators are no-go for hands-on experience. And this is something we're very proud of in Namibia, because I think it would just perpetuate the wrong kind of conservation ethics when you start treating wild animals as, you know, a nice little selfie novelty pet experience. And that's us. Oh yes, I forgot to say, actually one of my other favorite activities at CCF is what they call the Serengeti Sundowner Drive. It was a beautiful scenery. In the backdrop, you actually see Waterberg Plateau. Yes, that's the entire Waterberg Plateau there. Stunning diversity of wildlife, antelopes. It was a really beautiful drive. So it was nice to also take a space away from just cheetah. Laurie personally hosted us. We had the most delicious goat cheese dip ever, which is from local goats, because they have their own little goat herds, which they use to learn and train of how to make goat herds cheetah-proof, if you want to put it like that in a very broad terms. So thank you, everybody, for your time and attention. And I hope that this time this worked out.